Hello, gents.
What's going on?
Hola.
Hola. Hi, everyone. We've got Adam back with us. Say hello, Adam.
Hello, Adam.
So this week, yeah, it's crazy in Los Angeles. We're going to start off with that, I think. You want to start off with that?
What happened?
The massive fires that broke out in LA on Tuesday.
Where? Never heard of that.
Ah, stop.
Huh?
It's been all over the news. How'd you miss that?
No.
Not much of a news hound now, are you?
Just a bit of fire. Just a wee fire. No big deal, is it?
Um,
Is it a big deal, Adam?
I mean,
Not
it
for
was
California. Like.
no. Well, like size, not really, but
oh, come on now.
just in terms of where it was located,
Where was it located?
it was like in L.A.
No.
Yeah.
Sort of. Just in the edges,
Well, yeah.
as usual.
The burbs.
It's
Well,
not the middle.
there's a
city
summary
burned down.
report here. Yeah, okay. They've been worse, of course. So BBC right up here. 11 deaths confirmed so far. Oh, and in one of them, there's two main fires, Eaton and Palisades fire. Another 5 in the other fire. Hundreds of thousands of people under evacuation orders. 12,000 structures burned, that is, destroyed, razed. Although that can mean many things. That's not just homes, of course. That's literally, that includes cars and sheds and everything. Part of what makes this an LA story is that there's a curfew in place from 6 evening to 6 a.m.
Stop the looters.
to stop the looters. Imagine that's like a kind of telling symptom in itself that there's so much looting going on. You need a curfew, you know. On the question of blame, yeah. I've seen other officials do a word search for Marrone. That's Marrone. He's not the only one sort of on the defensive, but the LA County Fire Chief, Anthony Marrone, denied that his department had been unprepared. I did everything in my power to make sure that we had enough personnel and resources before the first fire started. It wasn't for lack of preparation or decision making that resulted in this catastrophe. It was a natural disaster.
Mm-hmm.
Elsewhere, we checked, and indeed, this wasn't a total surprise. The National Weather Service forecast the Santa Ana winds, which is causing substantially to blame for making this so ferocious, and that therefore a high fire risk before, I think on January 6th, so before the event. And there were other statements. I mean, the state spoke up and said, yeah, we're doing everything we can to prepare. Of course, they can say we're doing everything we can to prepare, and then whether or not they did, in hindsight, we'll see, you know, because there's talk about reservoirs that were left empty and they should have been. Well, who knows? Does anyone know for sure which reservoirs were empty and should have been full or could not have been filled or whatever? There's more in that piece, actually. Can you scroll down? I think this is the next part, the next section. Oh, here's a map first. That's the smaller of the two largest fire, the Eaton fire. So, Joe, that is city. I mean, that's it's outskirts, but it's considered Los Angeles City. That's Altadena, so it's the next section down is Pasadena. And then the other fire is Palisades, also within Los Angeles metropolitan area.
Yeah.
Malibu is further out. Oh, there's the Palisades one.
It's all in the outskirts, all on the north side.
And the next, the winds now are moving on the shore. In fact, they're moving from the east. They're moving from left to right there in your screen. So that area that's coming up next on the right is Brentwood. It's even wealthier suburb in terms of, you know, who lives there and values of property prices and so on. Brentwood is next. And the fire is only something like, it's in that write-up, something like 11% contained, which means they don't have any control of it at all, really. It might have burned out on northern and western fringes. It's not moving in that direction anymore, but it's still moving east, which is into LA proper. So undisputably the city, right? After Brentwood, you've got Santa Monica. Well, in fact, right there on the coast, first is Santa Monica, and then further inland is Brentwood. And then it's, downtown. So,
That's not going to happen.
no, why? It's too concretey,
Hmm?
too little to burn.
There's a reason it's burning the edges, because there's brush and trees and burnable stuff, you know.
Go down to, there's a subheading. I think it's, what caused this fire? Not that we're gonna rely on the BBC to tell us, but was that a prepared? We looked at that. What caused the fires? Lightning, the most common source of fires in the US, has been ruled out, which fits. There was no storm. Nor has there been any official explanations, indications so far that arson, well, hang on, there have been arsonists caught, but so far they look like they're opportunists lighting smaller fires. The actual correlation of one of the large fires being started by an arsonist, that has not been made yet. So then they talk about California's very wet years of 2 years ago, 2022, 2023, brought about a huge growth of vegetation, which dried out in the drought of last year, creating abundant kindling. So a combination of an exceptionally dry period, downtown LA has only received 0.4 centimeters of rain since October. And the powerful offshore gusts known as the Santa Ana winds have also created ripe conditions for wildfires. And they say there's no rain forecast for a while, so this could go on for another week.
Although I think I don't know why I say offshore gusts. Maybe that's what helped to start the fires, but it's the onshore gusts or inland gusts that are obviously driving the fire down towards Los Angeles. It's coming from the north, so it's coming inland either from the north or from the north.
I think that's what they mean off. They're coming off rather than onshore would be they're coming from the sea in. But yeah, the Santa Ana winds are north to south,
okay,
or northwest even, southeast.
Oh yeah, offshore, onshore. Anyway, offshore winds would
Now,
be
everyone doesn't believe anyone in officialdom says is scoffing climate change, and yes, we would too. But that explanation could be a big factor there. What they said about a bloom in growth, a bloom in combustible material because of let's say a wetter period than average, followed by a drought again, it's obviously going to turn dry. You do have kindling.
Mm-hmm.
That's not an unreasonable
And more CO2,
fuel for what causes the fire.
which fuels plant growth, you know. So that's why we should really try and get rid of as much CO2 as possible to stop California burning down, because it's really important that California doesn't burn down. Right?
Because how else are we going to get our
How would we survive?
Hollywood infusions?
If the Hollywood sign burns down, then that's it. It's game over.
Biden has announced that everyone affected gets 100% funding for 6 months. That's generous. Maybe he figures he can afford to do that because Trump is now going to be left holding the tab. Because there's price gouging going on. I've only seen it anecdotally, but people are being charged, like they want to rent a home. They've got to move their family in somewhere. And it's like $18,000 a month, please. And higher. I've heard higher. $34,000 a month and up.
Yeah, if you want a mansion that you came from, you know. How about a 1-bedroom apartment? Stuff some of those celebrities in there. See how the other half live. No? Not just the celebrities, some of the rich people. Shove them in a 1-bedroom apartment, say, welcome to reality.
Yeah, the celebs. You don't feel too sorry for them. But roughly speaking, one fire is hitting Celebville, and the other one is more like working class.
Yeah.
Regular Los Angeles people.
So
That's the Eaton fire.
Yeah. So it's going to get a bit more windy again Monday, Tuesday, whatever. same direction winds for a day or two, but I'm not sure. I don't think it'll go much further. It'll get much worse, whatever. So even though people want this to keep going, especially the media, because it's clickbait and all that, and everybody likes a bit of sensationalism and drama. So we're totally against that here. Sensationalism and drama, right? It's just the facts, right, Adam?
Yep, just the facts.
So the worst fire was the one a few years ago in what do you call that place? Paradise. Take me down to the Paradise City. That was
The worst for where? For LA? Maybe for
in California history.
California,
So it was. What do you call it? Wasn't it Paradise? It was called Paradise, wasn't it? The town, the whole town burned down.
Yeah. And they've been bigger in recent years too. The Wolsey one was huge.
Yeah.
But this is the claim here is specifically that this
It's
is
called the Campfire. Yeah, 2018 destroyed the town of Paradise. 85 people dead, 18,000 structures lost.
That's worse.
Nobody got. And then the in terms of the actual area covered or area burned, there's this one doesn't even factor in the top 5 in terms of acres burned.
No.
So it's nothing burger really. But then what would people write on Twitter? What would they do on Twitter? Nothing to do,
They're saying it's the worst for LA City. But even then, there's a context they're leaving out, which is that the city has expanded. A lot.
Yeah. I mean, it was. There's some places would say it's the most destructive based on structures damaged. Palisades Fire, which was this one, structures damaged or destroyed were 5,000. But that one in 2018 that destroyed the town of Paradise, that was 18,000 structures.
Okay.
So, and 86 deaths, And Palisades, this is maybe old news. I think it's more than that now, more than 5,000 structures destroyed. I think they're saying 12,000.
12.
Yeah.
As of today.
And 13 people have
15
lost their lives. So
that could go up because it doubled from yesterday to today because they're finding bodies now in homes.
Yeah.
Of people who try to fight it.
There's some dude on Twitter, and again, this is like fodder for Twitter people. He as with every fire of this type, when you go on social media, it's like people look at all the places, all the houses that have been burned down, and they see a big area with every house burned down, and then there's one house in the middle that's untouched.
Mm-hmm.
And they go,
They blame the dues.
oh my god, well, everything and anything gets blamed then, but
Them dues.
Superman with his laser beam eyes,
The
evil
dudes.
Superman, evil douche Superman, firing dews from his eyes. No, yeah, one guy on Twitter I saw claimed that the one house he was looking at, he went and asked the people, and they said that they didn't have a smart meter. So he was suggesting other people go around and find these houses that haven't been burned down and ask the owners if they have a smart meter or not. So it's kind of like they're all daisy chained, all the smart meters are daisy chained to go off, and you can push a button and say combust, and then all of the smart meters explode or burst into flames. Maybe they've got thermite in them or something.
Because the idea is to get rid of them all so that way they can bring in the 15-minute city.
Yes. Or some bigwig developers want all the land. More land. Give me your land. And it's, we're going to just burn you out. It's kind of like, like in the A-Team. You really need the A-Team for this kind of situation, you know what I mean? Because the A-Team used to be the theme of every A-Team show was like, some bigwig landowner or whatever was trying to force some people from a local town out because he wanted to build a railroad or had oil or whatever, So, and then, and they had no one else to call, so they had to call the A-Team. So if that's what's going on, call the A-Team. But I don't know. So I don't know what the actual reason. Well, I don't. Obviously, we're already assuming that someone did it on purpose, right? So maybe someone had a space-based satellite and was like, brrr, brrr, another road done, brrr, or pew, 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 shooting each house, Possible, I suppose, possible.
So you're saying there's a chance?
There's a chance, Neil, there's a chance of the most extreme tweets being true.
Some of the, I don't know what to make of that, where they have, oh, look at this, the trees are fine.
Yeah, look at that happens every time. That's the other one they say. Apart from the houses, they say the
trees are grand.
Yeah, it's like, you know, wait, like a lot of the houses I think in the US in general we build out of like timber frame, you know, and whenever you buy timber to build houses, you ideally want to get timber. Well, the timber you want to buy is stuff that's first of all the stuff that's being sold, but stuff that has been dried out for quite a long time,
Aged.
Yeah, because there's newsflash for a lot of people, I think. Wood that comes from trees, which it generally does, right?
Mm-hmm.
Has a lot of moisture and a lot of water. It sucks water up from the ground. So trees, you know, generally speaking, have a high content of water depending on the tree, you know. And you know the way when there's a fire, what do you usually go for?
Water.
Right. So you're talking about like these structures that are standing on their high percentage of water, which people use to put out fires. So it kind of stands to reason that structures called trees that have a high percentage of water in them would be less likely to burn than a house right beside it that has a lot of wood in it that has actually been deliberately desiccated. Just a theory. I know it's not. It's a bit radical, I suppose, for a lot of people, and it doesn't fit with maybe more exciting explanations.
Yeah.
But
You're not helping with the clicks here.
it could be.
Give us something with the clicks.
Well, I could come up with something else. I don't know.
Space lasers.
The space lasers are. We're talking space lasers here.
Jewish
but
space lasers.
Well, I'm talking. Even in the case of space lasers, there's a reason why the trees wouldn't burn, you know, and the houses would. Whatever the source of fire, that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about why the trees didn't burn, you know. But if you don't like the explanation that trees have a lot of water in them and that's why they don't burn, what about that the guys firing the space lasers are environmentalists and they want to protect the trees, so they deliberately avoid the trees.
So they're going to pollute the atmosphere with all of the chemicals from
CO2.
burning down a house.
Yeah, but they're playing the long game because all that land then they'll plant trees on it, and it'll be. They're thinking.
Yeah,
they're thinking
okay,
down the future.
okay.
They want a planet with basically very few people, not a lot of infrastructure, just for them, and vast majority of the land that is being occupied by these plebes. You know, the great unwashed right now, including the celebs, but all the rest of us too. That should be returned to nature. You know, so they can skip naked through it with their other globalist overlords. And I don't know, engage in some kind of
Weird
Rituals.
gay rituals or something, yeah, in the
Like
forest.
that Bohemian Grove thing.
And not be harassed by ordinary people looking at them and talking about it on Twitter. They just want to be able to
just
do
call
that
it
privately.
Call it a national park and say
Yeah.
keep out signs. Duck, 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 duck.
A national gay overlord park.
You saw the video of the guy who was trolling the news crew. I think it's all them gays. You know?
Yeah.
That's your basic. Like, that's what it resolves down to. You know, once you've read 100 books on the globalists, you know, sum all those up for me, and he's like, it's the gays.
Yeah.
Pretty much. I mean, if I had to say it in 4 words or 3 words, it's the gays.
We'll see now. If it goes into Brentwood, Kamala Harris. Kamala. She lives there.
She does?
Yeah. So if her house is left alone and everyone else's, well then
That'll be slam dunk.
the thing about wood timber frame versus concrete, I don't know, fires when they're this hot and they're melting cars here and there. Sometimes they leave a car alone. Sometimes they melt it. It just depends on how that thing behaves. You know.
Mm-hmm.
In some cases, you can see a concrete structure or brick and mortar structure survive completely or best when it's surrounded by just total ruins. But then in others, in the places in the Palisades area where there are like, you know, shopping streets, malls, I suppose the town center of Palisades, there's big over-engineered, multiple arched, multiple story concrete brick and mortar structures that collapse Maybe they
Mhm.
weren't burned by the heat, but they
Mm.
collapsed. Concrete isn't a sure thing either, it seems, when it's a raging inferno, you know. But in general, I suppose this thing, we make a solid prediction, isn't going to sweep through any. It's going to inevitably run out of fuel
Mm.
because it's encroaching on more
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah, of
more
course.
concrete
Yeah.
city.
It's very difficult to put a forest fire compared to like a fire in a town. You know what I mean? Fire in a town, you're attacking one building. I mean, there's of course there could be wind, blowing embers and stuff, but they're going to have a lot less material to actually burn and create a raging fire in a city that's where.
Because there's not going to be the same kind of like overgrowth of the underbrush that
Yeah,
you
all
were
that
talking
stuff.
about
Yeah, yeah.
earlier. Because that's not going to be there to the same extent, so it's not going to have the same kind of fuel to the dry tinder to just kind of like go up and
Yeah.
then sustain itself.
I think the problem is a lot of houses are made out of wood, and I mean obviously the fire in those areas, the fire if it's all around, it's fairly intense, generalized heat and all that kind of stuff. But you'd want to have a house that's made of brick and mortar, yeah, like be the walls and the roof, and you want to just make sure that your eaves are protected, so that embers can't get under your eaves and get at the wood, any woodwork that's exposed. You just want to avoid exposure to woodwork basically, and then you've a good chance that your house will survive. Like because we're talking just talking embers here, you've got a tile roof, brick walls, no exposed woodwork. There's nothing to burn, there's nothing for embers to burn,
I'm not going to discount the possibility of someone somewhere doing something to nudge things.
Yeah.
Because
Starting them.
you've seen
Yeah.
different things in, like with Hurricane Helene and just some of the weird things that were going on that seemed to make things worse. And then was it the fires in Hawaii where they seemed to do everything wrong to then, I guess, create more casualties and more destruction.
Yeah,
and so
yeah.
it's like,
the police
yeah,
shipping people back into the danger zone. I mean, there's
Yeah.
video evidence of it, eyewitness statements, etc.
Yeah.
That was super sus. There hasn't been anything like that here.
No.
That
yeah,
I know
exactly,
of.
exactly.
I know of.
That's why I'm bringing it up is because like I'm not seeing the same level of intentionality, but I'm not going to discount it out of hand just because there's not the same level. I mean, like as far as like one of the commenters asked about were there any houses with blue roofs, and when I tried looking for that kind of thing, the only thing I got was like the same picture of two blue knocked over trash bins
Yeah.
that weren't burned, and that was the only thing that I really saw that just got like shown over and over again, and so people were like, "See, it's the dues."
Yeah, but
that's
the scenario where someone started this is plausible. I mean, and I'm not just talking about some guy with blowtorch. I'm talking about like somebody with more power and more influence and more resources to do it. Because I mean, yeah, if you wanted to set fire to the hillsides north of California, and if you were had a lot of money and a lot of resources, say you're in the government maybe or some section of the government. I'm not saying that's the case. I'm just saying that if that was the case. You can do it. I mean, you don't even have to go to something exotic like space-based lasers or weapons, whatever. They have like conventional lasers. I mean, there's lasers being developed and in use right now to shoot down drones as part of the Western military apparatus. They have lasers. They're ground-based lasers or whatever, but I'm pretty sure they probably have. I think they also have aircraft-based lasers that are in development anyway, or that are maybe already being used. And so you just fly one of those over and shoot some lasers that aren't visible during the day. You can start some fires. If you want to do it from a distance. But then there's the conventional way of doing it. I mean, there's more chance you'd be spotted by.
Yes.
And if you wanted to start a big one, you might need to, have a lot of people out there with blowtorches or gasoline thrown in the ground. And somebody might spot you. So if you wanted to do it covertly, you should probably do it from the air with a laser
I'm not sure.
or a shark.
with frickin' laser beams
Yeah.
attached to their head.
A flying shark with laser beam.
I've seen it today, a TikTok video by some, apparently she's an actress, Whitney something, forget her name. She
Spears.
looked a bit hysterical. But, Well, that's understandable, given what's happened. Maybe her own home was burned. Anyway, she said, yeah, so my neighbor and friend saw people pouring gasoline into the sewers,
The sewers? What are you going to do?
the sewer system. I know, I
What's that
don't
going to do?
provide fuel
For what?
to spread a fire.
In the sewers?
I know, it's just what she said, and she's freaking out. And
You're dumping it into water. And then it's not, I don't think there's any burning underground. Like, that's going into the sewage treatment. That's not going to start fires
yeah.
on ground. Like,
Anyway,
I mean, if you want to start a fire, well,
maybe-
avoid not dumping it down the drain. You know what I mean?
Maybe
like
they
going into a
wanna-
house and dumping the gasoline instead of dumping the gasoline on the carpets and the curtain. You pour it down the sink. That'll do it.
Well, if they're doing it in the sewers, then they clearly just want to set shit on fire.
Literally,
oh my!
literally,
But then,
and figuratively.
today's
And
joke of the
figuratively.
day is brought to you by Adam. Yeah.
So
So
you should get on Twitter. You should make a video and say, "Dude, guys, breaking news! I've got some inside story here. I saw someone dumping gasoline into the sewers in LA. They literally want to set shit on fire. Do it, Adam. Do it. You go viral. People love that shit.
All right.
People love that
All
shit.
right, I'll do it.
Anyway,
I've one question over the whole thing. That's kind of general, broader picture. Like, okay, they they had a decent forecast for prediction of a high risk that something like this would happen. But surely the Santa Ana winds covers a large region of Southern California when the conditions are right. The whole region is dry-ish, tinder-like, and there's a fire risk over this broad area. I just don't like the two biggest ones. There's a few other spots, the Hearst fire and something else is called, which seem to be okay. The two big ones are right on the periphery of the actual city. And and there's been no build up to this. There's not been a couple of weeks of other fires in remote places.
yeah.
It just starts with a bang at LA.
Yeah.
Chance?
No,
Bad luck?
I mean, I would, if I had to bet, if I was forced to bet, if I was forced to gamble, which is against my religion, but if I was forced to gamble, in threat of being excommunicated or something, I would say I don't know, not 100%, but I would say it's more likely that there was some help for this fire than not.
So you're saying there's a conspiracy? Okay, change the headline. We busted it wide open. No, we've assigned a probability, which is as sensational as Joe's ever going to get. Sorry, peeps.
Until we have some slam dunk evidence, like.
Yeah, and the other broad issue is, so that's the location, space, and the other one is timing. Again, it's another kind of despondent thing to happen, obviously to the people that directly involved, but also to America as a whole.
Yeah.
In the run-up to Trump being inaugurated, you know, just that rapid sequence of terror attack, mad fire.
Yeah.
Oh, and here's Trump.
Yeah, although I don't think it's necessarily specific. It may be related to Trump because the timing is there, but if there's been other fires like Hawaii, that happened under Biden, didn't it?
Yes, Lahaina, yeah.
And a bunch of other things, other terror attacks, other general dysphoria, or
It's apolitical in that sense.
yeah. There's if people are, if there's someone, of course there are people behind wars and all that kind of stuff and setting fires, etc. But if there's some agenda to make people feel like the world's gone to hell, basically, if that's an agenda, then it's been going on for quite a while, and it's broad scale. It's not specifically related to Trump,
Right.
Yeah, but you have to pick it out between. But in that case, or in that scenario, we are positing, some kind of conspiracy theory. Not only you have these conspirators out to get us by doing all this shit, but nature's doing it too. So nature's out to get us as well. So we're beset on all sides
By
So-
the tyranny of
of nature and
karma.
by the tyranny of nature and gay global overlords.
So it's kind of like Sodom and Gomorrah, is what you're saying.
Yeah, definitely is. Yeah, it's looking more and more that way, you know. But people acclimatise. I'm just waiting for the point where people can't narrativize it anymore or rationalise it and bring it into the new normal, you know, where it's not possible to do that anymore.
What do
I don't know if it'll happen.
What do they do then?
They all just run around
Become
in a circle.
Inveterate
Shouting.
doomers like us, or
No, they run around
Yeah.
in a circle.
Hands flailing in the air.
Yeah, shouting, "Someone do something!
yeah,
Someone needs to do something."
that's
Um,
actually they're already like that.
Yeah, well, world's a big place, you know. It's very hard to. I mean, it's understandable. It's hard to talk about any one specific situation and not think that this is representative then of the rest of the world. And maybe it is, in a broader meta kind of sense. But you know,
LA is a specific place.
well, it's a very small place, and it has a very small percentage of the world's population. It's a very small area of the world. There's plenty of other places in the world where people literally, like I would say, that I was joking at the start of the show here, have no idea what you're talking about when you say California fire. They don't even know where California is. Fire? What fire? California? Where? Where's that? What are you talking about? I didn't hear any California fire. You know? Cybertruck blew up. What's a Cybertruck? What the fuck are you talking about? Trump got what? Assassin? Who's Trump?
Come on.
Yeah, sure.
Everyone knows.
No,
even the
you think that?
Africans. Even the Africans
Come on.
know.
No.
There were the little kids.
They
who
have
were doing
shrines
the-
to Trump in
You'd have-
India.
Again, that's your
In small towns.
That's your lensing kind of effect going on there. It's you see it in social media. You see a couple of black people. It's so I don't
My
know if it's
parents
racist of you
know
or
about
not.
Trump.
They do. Well, yeah, because they're
That's
stuck in the Western
everyone.
world and
They're
they're
stuck
and they're
in-
Anglophones and they hate him because they're personally invested in it. But there's vast millions, hundreds of millions of people in Africa and Asia
Waving,
and
waving the MAGA
elsewhere
flag.
who no,
No, they're
who
not.
have no idea what
Waving
you're talking
Russian
about.
flag.
You know, and what do they think? You know, so it's hard. You know, I understand like because when people look at this kind of stuff, they personalize it and you know it becomes personal to them. But they tend to forget the global picture as well. Is that there's a lot of people over in Mongolia there, you know, just carrying on.
Yeah,
doing their
yeah.
thing, and they get their thing when they get an earthquake. Their world is
Comes into focus.
turned upside down, you know, and it's like it's visited on them. But I don't think you're unless it gets really bad, you're never going to be able to visit everybody at the same time, you know, or even everybody is going to get a piece of it, if you know what I mean. And the problem is, by the time it moves on to someone else, or a few years later, like it moves on to disasters or somewhere in some other part of the world, the people in California will have rebuilt, or in LA will have rebuilt, in Palisades and stuff will have rebuilt their houses and they'll have forgotten about it. Oh yeah, remember that fire? So you don't carry the drama on. Human beings are very adaptable by necessity to a world that is can be quite chaotic and full of change and stuff. We wouldn't survive very long if we weren't adaptable to new things, you know, and get to kind of rationalise them and narrativize them and put them in the background and look to the future, you know. So it's hard. If anybody has a plan to kind of like freak everybody out at the same time, they're going to need something. It's hard to do, you know.
They're gonna need a bigger laser.
Yeah, a really big one. Yeah, yeah. This gives you scan do the whole world.
You reckon there are people in the world who don't know 9/11 happened?
For sure, yeah.
Stop.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, because they've been born since.
Hmm?
Everyone at the time heard about it. Surely.
Yeah, but it has no significance to them.
Right.
It's kind of irrelevant. It's only a tiny, tiny percentage of the population who think that 9/11 is in any way significant. I mean, they're right that it is, and that all the shit that has, you know, followed since 9/11 and the way the world has been shaped since 9/11, or the impact it had, it was definitely a turning point in world history. But people don't. It's too big. The world's too big for people get it inside their head all at once. You know what I mean? And understandably so. Like, it's kind of like it's pretty difficult, you know.
We
So,
move.
yeah.
We move on
Move on to
from fire to ice. Trump seems to be serious about annexing Greenland.
I know.
The memes are funny, but here's a statement he made on his Truth Social, which he's since repeated to the press at Mar-a-Lago. I'm pleased to announce, he's announcing a new U.S. ambassador to Denmark. Blah, blah, blah. Ken is great. He's going to be great. Yeah, we love Ken. At the end, for purposes of national security and freedom throughout the world, the United States of America feels that the ownership and control of Greenland is an absolute necessity. Discuss. Any thoughts?
the ownership of Greenland.
Yeah.
Yeah. They just want to lock it down. I mean, they already have a few bases there, have had them for a very long time. They've been interested in Greenland for a long time. But the only plausible reason why it would become an issue under Trump is anticipating that the Northwest Passage area, like above there to the Arctic, is going to open up under global warming. It's going to become, there's going to be free passage through there at a certain, relatively soon, in the next few years or 10 years or whatever. But also, so there's that angle, but there's also Trump's kind of like, I think, were we talking about this, about pulling in the horns of the American empire in a bit, and really making going America first, which implies that they would stop financing, to some extent, stop financing their global empire, the global empire that was developed since the last 100 years, let's say, they've been shelling money out to, and he's like, that's ridiculous, and that's why he's talking about
Like
NATO. You can see it.
Gender studies in Timbuktu.
Well, that, but even NATO and all sorts of other expenses that the US has been paying, or paying out in service to maintenance of empire, and he's like, nah, let's not do that anymore. And this is Greenland would be seen as, and it's not really, but America wants it to be in their sphere of influence, let's say. It's in their quote-unquote backyard. Historically or traditionally, under the American empire, the whole world was America's backyard. That's why it was America's policeman. But Trump's more like, no, let's shorten or reduce the confines of our quote-unquote empire. Let's make it a little mini empire, and let's get control over things that we can actually get control over within easy reach, and that also have strategic importance in terms of resources and that kind of thing, which Greenland might have.
It makes way more sense in that perspective to go for something like Greenland as opposed to something on the other side of the world that has like really no significance whatsoever to an American's daily life. And so with Greenland being not too far, up the hemisphere, and having its own like resources and things that America could exploit, it's like, well, it kind of makes sense. Yeah,
he's looking at the way that America, spread itself militarily, politically, culturally around the world, essentially in search of resources to satisfy the appetite of the Americans, the American empire, to serve the empire. He's saying that's very expensive and it's not a good idea. Surely we can do the same thing. We can get the resources we need to make America great again, or make it better, or whatever.
Closer to home.
By doing that closer to home, and not have to extend ourselves like basically literally all the way around the world and have all these bases and all these lines of supply and communication, all that kind of stuff. It's just like way too expensive. Why don't we just stay at home? Fortress America,
Yeah.
To some extent. I'm not saying that literally, but relatively.
I agree that that's probably his thinking, but he hasn't said that.
No, but he's not going to say that.
No. Why not?
But, well, it's implicit in MAGA.
Okay.
I think everybody understands that. It's implicit in America first. Stop sending money to Ukraine. I mean, all the stuff that people say, the average MAGA person says, implies a withdrawing of the largesse of empire, of pulling it in, basically. I mean, that's what people have been recently anyway complaining about. Why are we giving money to all those other countries? Well, the reason we give it to other countries is because that's where we have military bases, and that's why those are countries we want to control. A lot of it just for control's sake, because it became pathological, where it was just like control for control. It went beyond resources.
But initially, it was to secure
resources.
These gold mines in Indonesia, that
Oil.
rubber in Malaysia, and so on. Okay, they're going to have a hard time selling this. I mean, maybe not the well. I'm not seeing a huge uptake in
selling what? Greenland? You mean?
Annexing Greenland, because all the statements so far from Denmark and Greenland.
Well, what does he mean by own?
Come and take it. You'll have to do it militarily.
Yeah.
What does he? He sounds like he's like incorporated into the United States, or maybe a sub level of that would be is like a offshore. I don't know what the official status of Puerto Rico is.
Well,
but
it's technically like the Danish and by implication the Europeans have a lot of influence over Greenland. And there's 56,000 people. If there was nobody there, it would just be like, well, whoever gets there first and plants a flag, they own it, right? But there's people there, and there's, you have to, because it's effectively a protectorate of or semi-owned by Denmark. You have to tread carefully, And maybe he's thinking in terms of, as part of his process of making America great again, and, not being an empire so much anymore, then Europe is going to fall away, let's say, or he's going to allow Europe to go its own route. He's even encouraging them to do their own thing. You need to look after yourselves. The Europeans themselves are saying that as well, because they have read that, read between the lines before now that they need to start thinking about, flying on their own. You're old enough now, flying your own. And in that case, that ultimately would, the threat there is that you would have a re-establishment of friendly relations with Russia and European countries. And if that's the way the wind's blowing, then you have Russia friendly with Europe, which includes Denmark, which means that Russia might get preferential access to Greenland via Denmark. And Trump's going, well, fuck that, I'm going to get it now. So we need to go in and invade it, or in some way or other coerce these people in Greenland to want to be part of MAGA rather than being part of Mega. Make Europe great again. Mega. Has anybody thought of that? Mega.
yes,
It's a real word.
Orban has.
Anyway, Mega versus MAGA. So it's the battle of Mega versus MAGA over Greenland.
Europe isn't going to go mega. It's too gay.
Well, you know what? But they can be dealt with. You can. There's conversion therapy. What do you call it? Political conversion therapy. Political and cultural conversion therapy. The AFD, who's getting Trump, Musk had an interview with the leader of the AFD there recently that he published, and there's a threat that they might actually become the new German government in February next month. And then once Germany falls, all the other dominoes fall, right? Macron's going to be kicked out because soon, within the next week or two, it's going to be definitively revealed that Brigitte Macron is actually a man, and he's been lying all this time, and he's super gay and stuff. And then people will be like, okay, we all kind of knew that, but now that it's official, let's get rid of him, or he resigns, whatever. And then you get, the National Front in France, and then it's just very quickly there's domino effect. Suddenly Europe goes mega, well, she's actually talked. The leader of the AFD has actually talked in that interview with Musk, said that if they're in power next month, they're reopening Nord Stream straight away.
Yes.
Right there, that's immediate re-establishment of friendly relations with Russia. And it's all happening at the same time. There's big changes going on right now, and will continue. Will be happening this year. But I'm just suspicious when that happens, because I think it's been allowed to happen. Zuckerberg, for example, little weasel.
Yeah.
Undergrounder, like.
MAGA now.
Yeah. He crawled out from some hole in the ground at some point,
Say hello,
With his new
fellow
chain.
humans.
Hello, fellow humans, huh?
With his gold chain,
Yeah.
his long gold chain, and his curly hair, and he's like, "Hello, my fellow surfers."
Yeah, his gold pendant, which is some kind of Jewish prayer thing. Anyway, is he Jewish? Is he Jewish? Maybe
His
he is.
father's Jewish.
Right, okay.
Hence Zuckerberg, yeah.
Anyway, sure he is. What's a Jew? That's the question. Anyway, him coming out this week saying he's going to make Facebook great again.
By kicking out the fact checkers. 40,000 fact checkers?
No more fact checkers. Moving them from California to Texas so that they can fact check in a more MAGA way in Texas than they would have been allowed to in California, and just reducing censorship and all that kind of stuff. And he's down on the Biden administration saying, yeah, they forced us basically to be sensory.
You
really
had a
sensory.
choice,
They were
Mark.
calling our people and threatening us, and we had no choice, blah, blah, blah. That's the narrative. And I'm like, well, what happened? And so the Biden administration did that to you, forced you to censor right-wing views. And now you're finally, the shackles have been taken off. He's been released from this woke censorship prison, and he was never really woke, Mark Zuckerberg, he was always super MAGA secretly, and now he's been freed and he can fully embrace the freedom of speech thing because of Trump. And I'm like, well, what happened how come you were uber censory under during Trump's first term? Surely the shackles were off then, but you didn't. You doubled down on it in all those years, So he's bullshitting basically. He's a little Weasley liar, and I don't trust him. Although I might give him the benefit of the doubt, but not really.
Well,
but
I can think of a plausible, because I remember the Senate hearings with him and Dorsey and the third.
Somebody should tell me
social media platform.
If he wants to look more human, he should definitely not do that flat haircut, the slap down haircut.
Yeah.
He's got the curly bop going on now, which totally makes him look more human. Like,
Yeah.
He just totally looks like an android with his flat down. Anyway, with his hair flat, go ahead.
He looked super uncomfortable in those hearings, which
Yeah.
were during the first Trump administration, but it wasn't Trump
He
grilling
wasn't
him
programmed
there.
to lie openly.
They were congressmen.
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
What's your plausible reason that he's telling the truth then, that he was under pressure?
And he's saying he's cleverly blaming the Biden administration.
That's what I'm saying. But what about under Trump
But
before?
really, it's deep state, permanent bureaucracy types who come through their
so that-
favorites in Congress.
Right.
And he knows that when someone here is saying it, actually there's these killer bastards behind
Right.
it are the
Right.
ones saying it.
But that's what I was going to get to, actually. I was saying when he said it was only under the last 4 years that they were put under pressure, I'm like, well, what about the previous 4 years? When Trump was in, why didn't you reduce your censorship then? And the implication was that under Trump, well, we know that under the first Trump administration, the deep state was going bonkers, right? They were going full on to attack Trump and all that kind of stuff. So it's plausible that they were putting the pressure on during those years as well, and that they are, the deep state is the one that actually calls the shots, and Mark Zuckerberg knew that, so he continued with the censorship under Trump.
With the Biden laptop in the lead up to the 2020 election. It's like Trump was in office at that time.
Yeah.
And yet still he was censoring something that should have been obvious that it was not Russian disinformation.
Right. So I'm giving the benefit of the doubt that he was forced to it, and that he wasn't forced. It's not the Biden administration necessarily, or that was doing it. It's the deep state, and they were there during the first Trump admin, so he had no choice. They were the ones who were leaning on him. He knew that.
But he can't say that.
So, but this brings up the real problem, is that now, and that makes me suspicious, is that now he has been released from the constraints imposed on him by the deep state. And my question is, why?
Yeah.
Why are they letting MAGA run now? Why are they? They've had 8 years at least, and even before that, back to 2015, 14, whenever the whole woke stuff started, they've had 10 plus years of programming of the population and politicians and all that kind of stuff with this woke agenda. And now it's stopped, and they're taking their hands off the reins and letting the backlash that came with Trump and in Europe as well from a lot of people. So they've annoyed people enough, at least people who were going to be annoyed about it, which is a substantial section of the population, I think probably a majority, were not happy with the whole woke thing. They've had enough after 10, 15 years of it. And there's a head of steam they've built up for support that now supports amongst the population, that supports a right-wing agenda. The problem, and it sounds, in this scenario that I'm positing in my kind of head, is they have this whole woke agenda that includes large amounts of immigrants and promotion of gay rights and all that kind of stuff, and putting gay people and transgender people in the positions, like being accepted into society, but really shoving it down people's throats, and immigration and all that kind of stuff, and forcing people to be diverse and accept diversity and all that kind of stuff, to the point that people are pissed off. And they're at the point now where they're ready and willing to react against that and vote in Trump and vote in right-wing parties in Europe and elsewhere. But that's happening in the context of the ground having been laid before that. And the real fracture point would be lots and lots of immigrants. And even a section of society that has adopted that radical lefty woke agenda. So it's a set. It looks like the setup, whether it was manufactured or natural. It's a setup for a clash of those two ideologies in society. The lefty one that they promoted for the past 10 or 15 years, that causes the backlash towards a right wing agenda, and then you go, okay, fight,
Divide and conquer.
fight them, have civil.
Actually, go ahead. Try and actually do mass deportations.
Yeah.
See what happens.
Do what the people want. We've worked the people up to want this. Now go ahead and try and do it, and be a lot of chaos. So I'm a bit suspicious. I'm very suspicious.
Yeah. With the Zuck, at least Musk was. There's a paper trail of Musk changing sides where he goes, how much does Twitter cost? And 2 years later, he's progressively more and more pro-Trump. And then it's clinched for him when Trump survives the assassination and goes fight, fight, fight.
Right.
That's the moment when Zuck, for the first time, articulated anything remotely right-wing. When he goes on some softy podcast, or maybe it was a mainstream interview, and he goes, yeah, I watched that, and I was like, wow, that's pretty badass. And then in August, he announced actually the fact checkers were fucking up out of California.
So that's his narrative, basically, as to why he switched sides.
I had a profound effect on me, kind of thing.
Right.
And I wonder, because there's something about him. Does he read situations like that differently than most people? Most people go, oh my God, that's divine intervention that Trump survived. The Zuck probably goes, okay, there's been a program change. Must adapt, interpret meaning of significance of this.
Computing. Yeah.
I don't.
Because like a lot of people who are the never Trumpers, they paid no attention to that fight. They weren't swayed by it at all. All of them just said like, damn, why did that guy miss?
Either why did he miss, or it could have been like Trump orchestrated it in order to survive, to get to rally his support base. And
so in that sense, Zuck's definitely not a hardcore never Trumper, even though looking at his platform that he controlled, he was fully against Trump and Trump's agenda for 8 years, which he blames on, they made me do it. Or he was, anti-Trump light. He's not really hardcore one way or the other because he's Jewish and he's an internationalist. He doesn't care about the plebes. He just exploits them one way or the other, so he's willing to change sides. That's a anti-Semitic trope that I'm putting out there.
5 out of 5, Joe.
Yeah. So either way, it's hard to know. It's hard to know what goes on in Mark Zuckerberg's head, and you probably don't want to know.
Speaking of
be in there.
There's something that bothers me about
they mostly come at night, mostly.
The fallout from this grooming gang thing in the UK. It is Musk who starts it, at least the current news cycle about it, because there was no development. He just whipped it up in late December, and the theory was, although he's deflecting from the H-1B visa thing, right? And it's had traction, it's got legs to it, because it is accurate to say that in many of the cases, the gangs were overwhelmingly Muslim and South Asian, which is Pakistani. Still, I don't like the issue, the way the trajectory of this thing. This has been an ongoing thing in the UK for ages. So the newbies don't know that this, let's say post 9/11, this started with Jimmy Savile scandal, which there were loads of associated scandals with it. And they were high-profile political figures who were the perps, in grooming gangs, such that This came out in 2014, but it actually concerned a 1992 case about a pedo network operating right in the heart of the Houses of Parliament in London, in Westminster. Headline in The Guardian, 2014, children's homes were supply line for pedophiles, says ex-minister. Lord Warner says an inquiry he conducted in 1992 showed how children's homes were targeted by powerful people. If you scroll down there in the first few paragraphs, this former health minister warned that a powerful elite of at least 20 prominent figures carried out the worst form of abuse. And he noticed it in Birmingham, where there's separately, since, a scandal about Pakistani grooming gangs in Birmingham. Maybe there's overlap, maybe there's connection, but that's two different things. And so this is the kind of flavor of the mainstream reporting 10 years ago in the UK concerned pedos in power. It prompted then Home Secretary Theresa May to write an op-ed in the Telegraph. And I'm just going to pick out two choicey bits. And her reason for writing it was to call for what is now being called for on Twitter, a full public inquiry into the grooming gangs. But back then it wasn't specifically about the Pakistanis. It was actually about pedos in the Houses of Parliament. Here's two excerpts from her op-ed in 2015. I'm not sure which one comes first. Maybe the longer one. Theresa May wrote, "We already know the trail will lead into our schools and hospitals, our churches, our youth clubs, and many other institutions. However, what the country doesn't yet appreciate is the true scale of that abuse." This was her, I think, genuinely shocked at what she was realizing 10 years ago about this problem in Britain. In my discussions with victims and survivors, I began to realize how abuse is woven covertly into the fabric of our society. Speaking at a meeting of survivors, one lady said to me, "Get this inquiry right and it will be like a stick of Blackpool rock." I'm not sure what that is, but...
rock is...
Like candy?
Yeah.
Okay. "You will see abuse going through every level of society." Now, what we have seen here is only the tip of the iceberg. So the UK's already been through a big public inquiry. And what happened to it is, it must have been torturous if you were sincere and involved in it, to try to because it was only finally published. This is the link to the final report in 2022. After going through 4 heads of the inquiry who resigned for different reasons from 2015 to 2022. That's the summary of it, the report of the Independent Inquiry into Child Sexual Abuse. Ironically, it was so vast in its scope and so, they looked at everything. And you ended up with a lot of garden variety child abuse cases being thrown in. And the result basically that the signal was completely muddied. In 2012, Jimmy Savile, 2013, 2014, what was shocking people was that children were being systematically taken into literally the offices of the people running the country, raped for lunch, and rumors that they were killed and disposed of on a regular basis. Like, would you like a side with your main kind of thing? It was fucking crazy, the stories that were coming out. What you ended up with was, oh dear, like, if you scroll down there, there's a, we're not going to read the whole thing, but they have, go past those bullet points. Yeah. What was I thinking of? I'm afraid I can't remember what I read was, but in this summary page of the long report, they're like, what we found is that it's all over the place and it's even global. Well, man, no shit, Sherlock. But you were originally tasked that the spirit of the investigation was the pedos in power, but that was drawn right out to something much bigger that kind of lost the signal in a much bigger, noisier picture of child sex abuse in general. It ended up spending £186 million on it. Like I said, there were, by the end of it, there were 4 different heads of the inquiry who either were forced out or had to resign. And it's interesting, a couple of the earlier ones wanted to go after the high-profile political animals. But then it changed. At one point, the 3rd head of the inquiry, it began to be politicized in a different way. So here in the first paragraph of this piece about, no, not in the report, this is another Guardian update on what was the ongoing inquiry. This is in 2016, this was published. About the 3rd head, who is, her name was Goddard, a New Zealand judge appointed in February 2015. Can you get it up? No, I didn't send you anything. Oh. Okay. I think it's the second or third paragraph in this one. Yeah. The Times reported that Goddard, a New Zealand judge who was appointed in February 2015 as the 3rd person to head the inquiry, was allegedly warned by officials about offensive remarks, including a claim that she had said high rates of child abuse in the UK were, quote, because it has so many Asian men. And at that point, that's true as far as the networks and the gangs in the predominantly Asian areas of UK cities are concerned. But you see, it's off on a different, it wasn't the reason that got the whole thing going in the first place. This is why as I was saying, I don't like the trajectory of this, because the debate now feeds perfectly into mass immigration issues, the new right, populist, and the solution. What's the solution? Everyone's saying it. It's mass deportations, and even the more extreme are like, no, we need mass executions. It's beautifully feeding into the same firestorm, and it does not concern what got the ball rolling in the UK 10 years ago, which was the pedos in power.
Yeah.
Another more recent development was the Labour guy who recently, within the last couple of days, got caught by the vigilante pedophile hunters, and was caught basically going to try and hang out with a minor. And so the way that I've seen this being spun is along the lines that you're talking about. It's like, oh, he's a Labour guy, and they're the ones who were involved in covering up the Pakistani rape gangs. And it's just feeding into this kind of
well, at the
missing
moment,
the point.
Yeah, and the timing is nuts. And that indeed did just happen, apparently. He's just been arrested. He's not a current sitting Labour MP, so he's not currently in the backbenches in Parliament. He was, though, in the Blair years. And
he was on the whole TV focus, recently, though. He was on
Yeah,
GB
yeah.
News basically recently,
to fight back against Musk.
pushing against Musk for talking about the rip gangs and stuff, you know. And then a few days after, he's on GB News saying that he gets caught in a kind of sting operation by paedophile hunters in the UK. No, he's been investigated.
Ivor Kaplan, no surprise if I'm guessing his ethnicity, who criticised Musk, and then immediately he's caught. So, and that's more grist to the mill, because that's like, well, there you go. It's Labour obviously covering it up, but yet there's currently a Labour government, but there was 10 years of the Tories before that. And anyway, he was an MP back under Blair.
I think you should explain what you just said there. His ethnicity. He's English, right?
No, he's Jewish. Well, yeah, he's Jewish English. By the way,
The Jews.
Super canard. Super trope. You're super trope.
well,
today.
it's not important here, because
I'm getting you 6 out of 5.
the
6 out of 5 on the anti-Semitism scale, right there. What I want to know is the whole Facebook, you know, anti-censorship, freedom of expression thing. Is that going to extend to YouTube?
no.
Come on.
Well, is it? It's a different company.
I know.
That's the Google.
I know, but is there a
Oh,
domino?
is that the next
Yeah,
domino to fall?
I mean, basically, the tropes that you've been throwing out there, are they going to get us this show shut down, or has it already started to have an effect?
No, it's trope. He is Jewish.
Hmm?
He is Jewish.
Yeah, but it's the way he presented it.
He's also...
You said no surprise.
oh,
guessing
right.
his, well, he said ethnicity, which I don't think Judaism is an ethnicity, although it depends how you define it. But his...
well, come on. On Monday, it's an ethnicity. On Tuesday, it's a religion.
yeah.
And on Wednesday, it's...
On the Wednesday,
Wikipedia, Kaplan was born in Brighton into a Jewish family, parliamentary career, etc., etc. He was chair of the Jewish Labour movement several years ago.
Yeah. He was, yeah.
Anyway,
That's irrelevant, but even though it's not, but it is. But
Okay.
it's like I actually put it up on my Twitter. This is the dude. He looks a bit like. You can play the left one there if you want. Just a bit of it. On the audio.
no, that's the annoying thing about those side-by-side videos. You can't...
Yep, you can click on one and make it bigger.
I don't think you'll get a volume adjuster.
Yeah, I think you will. Oh no.
Oh, yeah.
That you was going to meet him.
That wasn't, because Stephen will be at work.
At 1 o'clock, you said that you was going to go and meet him at quarter to.
If we could. I don't know, trains, etc.
yeah,
etc.
you see.
I don't know.
But wait, but here's the slippery thing. You said you had no intention, but now you concede that actually, yeah, I might have been planning to take this child to meet Stephen. So you admit that that's what you were trying to do.
I don't know his age.
You know his age accurately. This child regularly.
If I knew his actual age,
This
and
child-
I don't know that, then I wouldn't do anything.
This child regularly told you that they were at school and they were doing school-related activities.
Yeah, but that's not the same as knowing age. I have never. I want to ask him what his age is, and I've never done that.
Yes, you did.
No, I have never done that.
Of course.
No, I have never done that. So I want to ask that question.
You've asked
All
that
right, that's
question.
enough.
I've read it.
That'll
Here
do. But let's just have a look at this guy. I mean, now he's a kind of like, he's been thrown to the. He's stupid, obviously. I mean, obviously, there's plenty of people who do the same thing as him and don't do it in such a ham-fisted way, where he's contacting kids online and trying to meet them in a park and all that kind of stuff. That's low-level, common or garden pedos who do that, you know, and they're the ones who get caught by these paedophile hunter groups, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But there's plenty, like, I mean, you know, it'd be better if you could, if I'd like to see Joe Biden caught in a situation like that, you know?
Yeah.
But he's not going to be, because he has a different source, right? And he's protected, but
He's caught sniffing all the time.
yeah, that's as far as you get.
And
but,
grabbing.
And grabbing. But this is this guy, Ivor Kaplan. He's on Twitter. This is his profile. Look at his bio. He, him, former UK Defence Minister and Hove MP, gay, Sussex critic, Pride events, patron LGBT, lifelong supporter of queers or something. Anyway, so it gives you. I mean, it's bad in a certain sense because, like, you feel sorry for normal members of the gay community because this kind of stuff feeds into the idea that a suspicion of homosexuals and that they're all quote unquote pedophiles in the same way all Indians or all Pakistanis in England or rapists and all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? So it's very difficult to manage this at a societal level, you know, where this kind of stuff gets out, and then there can be, I mean, you can see how pogroms happen in the past, you know what I mean? Where people were swept up in kind of witch hunts, you know?
Yeah, in camps.
And put into camps and all that kind of stuff, you know, so it's pretty dangerous, you know. Not to say that people like him shouldn't be put in somewhere special, but...
he's a nonce.
He's a nonce, yeah.
As they say in England. The thing is, what bothers me as well is how... Brits got angry during the Savile thing, and they're angry now again, I suppose. A portion of them, who knows? Musk has riled up enough people, I guess, for the Starmer to make statements and have a vote against having another inquiry, because the last one cost almost 200 million quid.
Sorry, can you go back to his timeline?
Which timeline?
The timeline, that dude's timeline. No, they just had
Oh,
up.
yeah. His Twitter page.
Yeah. Just scroll down a few.
Yeah, it's full of...
Keep going. Cricket. Oh, he's into cricket and shit, or whatever that is. Yeah. Oh, and there he is, catching up with Kirsten. Oh! My type. All right. Thanks for letting us know, Victor. We really wanted to know that.
That's one of the.
He likes AI.
Yes.
He likes AI.
Asians.
AI Asians, apparently. Yeah. It's a difficult problem.
But this is symptomatic. Imagine he's been in Blair's government. He's still a kind of a consultant. He's in and out of a bit of everything, bit of this for business, this and that, right? And he feels so things have gone so bad. He feels comfortable just spaffing gay porn all over his public profile.
Yeah.
And
well, that's where we're at.
Using social media to DM kids.
So the last 15 or 20 years did. Yeah, the people like him would feel emboldened by all of that, and once they start or think they're able to post that kind of stuff, as a notable person, former, you know, deputy defence secretary, whatever, in government and all that kind of stuff, and he feels it's fine for him to post pictures like that on his public timeline and stuff, well, what's the next step? Well, if that's all good in society these days and nobody's saying a bad word, in fact, I'm being supported for being out and proud and all that kind of stuff, why can't I just contact some, you know, young kids on Twitter and see if they want to go for a walk in the woods? Maybe that'd be acceptable too. And of course, you know, depending on which policeman comes knocking on your door, it may... he
may join you, or he may arrest you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, who knows?
Or he may just let you...
Because the cops are bent as well.
He just may let you go because it's politically incorrect to kind of like... to do that, you know, to prosecute or to make a scene about something like that. So...
But that's part of the problem with the gay agenda, like the way that it's been promulgated and so forth. It becomes a grift for those with darker predilections. I mean, and that's something that, you know, like we've all talked about in various different places, and how like the people who are just kind of like the regular normies, and it's like, you know, we probably shouldn't be like, you know, against gay people for the fact that they're gay, and they're just like very normie-ish or esque, and they don't see just how dangerous it is to make these kind of things like broadly normal in your face sense.
To proliferate them.
Yeah. To allow it to proliferate to the extent that you have the pride events with children, and
Well,
it's like
that's a big problem. That's been going on for a long time, and it's been promoted, and you're shut down. And a lot of people, I think there are a lot of people out there who are of a lefty liberal mindset who think there's nothing wrong with that, you know. That kids, in line with the idea that there's been so much discrimination against homosexuals going back hundreds of years, maybe forever, whatever, that it's, you know, in a modern world that shouldn't be allowed anymore, and it needs to be kind of educated out of the population, and you're not going to do anything. This is the old, the thinking behind this is very common, is that you're not going to do anything about the people who have been brought up, like, who are adults now, especially older adults. You're not going to change their minds. They're stuck in their ways, right? They think, the gays, just something odd about them, and they're never going to change their mind. So the ones to target are kids. So kids should be exposed to gay culture, including drag queens and all that kind of stuff, because they'll be the next generation, and you don't want a bunch of, bigoted, homophobic people, kids growing up to be that way. So you need to de-bigotitize them by exposing them to the normalness of gay culture, as it's called, which doesn't really exist, but anyway.
Yeah. And how's that working now?
Well, it's working all right for the... No, it's not working out well, but the Vatican's getting in on it in their own way. This is from a few days ago, I think, an announcement by the Vaticano. The Vatican allows Italian gay men, only Italian gay men, to train to be priests if they remain celibate.
Pay what?
Candidates.
Oh, there you go. Oh, no.
Candidates for the seminary should not be disqualified based on sexual orientation, as long as they remain celibate. So there you go.
That's a slippery slope. And then
Church has changed,
yeah.
But the whole paedophile thing, there's an element of the paedophile thing, obviously, other than the predilection, which is just, it's just pathology in the minds of the people. In the people that engage in it, obviously they're sick people, because it's dominance. Like, you can't, in terms of paedophilia and the kind of things politicians or anybody does to kill children, you can't have. There isn't a clear example of dominance and abuse. You know what I mean? When you're attracted to in that way, and it's not even the word attraction that doesn't really get it. It's about wanting to have power and control over the most vulnerable, right? So that's pathological, right?
Yeah.
But so people have that. There's been people, and they seem to have risen to the top, and it's a symptom of the type of governments and people that run the world these days, that's what they are. They're pathological, and that's just one manifestation of their pathology.
Yeah.
They like wars. They like, they just fuck up society. They ruin society.
They're in it to see people suffer.
Yeah, they get to the point where it's almost deliberate, and that's not just that's their own private little engagements. You know what I mean? But they do it for personal pleasure. But when they're in positions of power, they're doing it society wide. Any policies they'll agree to or sign off on or whatever will go in the same direction of dominating other people and making people suffer. But it also, in terms of the intel agencies and all that kind of stuff, and this is something that is trending on Twitter recently, because I think Candace Owens said it, but people are just keep repeating it then, and there's memes about it and stuff. Basically the idea that paedophiles are allowed to remain in positions of influence or brought into positions of influence because they're easily blackmailed and easily controlled. I think that's what
Candace
said, based on she mentioned, like, she didn't mention Biden, but she mentioned Macron, Trudeau, two others. Anyway, so that is an aspect to it. I think it doesn't mean that people were necessarily brought in because they were that way, but that when those individuals in positions of power, when their nasty predilection made itself evident, it was facilitated in order to better control them. So intel agencies who keep an eye on politicians and are eavesdropping on everybody, have been for decades and decades. They actively engage in this. I mean, there's probably all around the world in different places. But like in Northern Ireland, for example, the part of the paedophile scandal going back decades and decades in the UK, paedophile scandal, paedophiles in political positions of political power in the UK was linked to a boys' home in Belfast called Kincora Boys' Home. You can look it up. There's a Wikipedia entry on it and all that kind of stuff. And so politicians in Northern Ireland who were that way inclined, the boys' home and the abuse at the boys' home was protected, it was facilitated and was hushed up and covered up by the British MI5 basically, in order to keep this boys' home as a place where they could weed out or find out who were paedophiles, who were gay, who were paedophiles, and then record them basically and have blackmail information on them so that they could control them. So it was immediately latched onto by intel agencies as definitely as a way to exert control over sitting politicians, including prime ministers and all that kind of stuff. Like back in the day, Edward Heath was a UK prime minister and he was accused as well. And there's several others, and they're only the tip of the iceberg, obviously. Most of it will be kept undercover. And
before Epstein.
Yeah, and the intel agencies who basically were controlling this had, in their minds, from an intelligence perspective, had a lot of motivation to suppress that information because they didn't want that person, that politician, like I said, up to prime ministers and high-level members of the government. They didn't want them to be outed because if they were outed, they would immediately have to leave government and someone else would have to replace them and then have to start again. Because they want blackmail, if possible, they want blackmail material on everybody, because it really is the intel agencies that actually run the government in most countries. I mean, the overt face of the deep state. There's levels behind the intel agencies that you don't get to hear about, but intel agencies certainly are the front face of the deep state, and they run the country in that respect. They keep control over politicians. It goes way back to the whole idea of commie threat and all that kind of stuff. We can't just leave this. We can't leave the running of this country up to a bunch of politicians who just get elected by people, because who knows who they are? Who knows which way they'd go? What if they're a bunch of communists? We need to keep tabs on them and find out, and it becomes the intelligence agencies' responsibility to keep this country on track, on the straight and narrow, let's say, right? Mm-hmm. And that's been the case for a very, very long time in most Western democracies and probably in other countries around the world.
Hoover started the FBI on that basis. It was literally the function of the FBI to get people. And then he himself, I don't know if he was paedophilic, but he was certainly on the deviant.
Hoover, he was transvestite, yeah.
Right.
And that means, deviant.
Here's a case that...
But the point, just that point is like they facilitate it and they don't want people out. That's why you can presume that there's an awful lot going on, a lot more than anybody has ever seen. The only ones that have come out that we can mention because they're publicly known is because they weren't able to suppress that. The intel agencies weren't able to suppress that person was a paedophile. But all the rest they have successfully suppressed because over the years and as new ones come in, and they'll try it out, like they'll bring them along, they'll try and weed out people, so any politician who's new to the game, whatever, they'll test them, they'll psychologically profile them and test them and bring them to parties, and if it's not paedophilia, it can be some kind of swingers or other kind of deviant, anything that the public would see as unsavory and would cause them, if it was released, if it was publicly known, they would lose their job. So that it's not just paedophilia; it's anything that would be seen as deviant, and they entice them to see who'll bite, Yeah. And a lot of them do.
Back in the 80s, there was a...
And it's not just, let me just say this as well, it's not just sexuality, but also any kind of corruption, any kind of financial corruption, etc., etc. Think about all the different ways that a politician could be booted out of office because of wrongdoing. So all of that is offered to these politicians to try and get them to bite, to get them under control. Anyway, carry on.
Yeah. In the 80s, it could just be that you had an affair.
Yeah. I mean, that's one thing as well. That's another. Yeah.
The candidate for the Democrat convention in 1988, forget his name. Gary, was it Gary someone? He was good. They made a movie about him. He was, in the end, it was Dukakis, who no one remembers. But this other guy was front runner. from Colorado, I think. And he's invited aboard a yacht off Miami, and she's young, but she's not underage. And next thing, she's like a PA or something in his campaign, and then it gets busted in the tabloids, and there's national disgrace, and he's no longer the running. Done. But nowadays, it's a whole other ball of wax, or it's it's the same. It's always been as dark and crazy as it was before, but what society deems beyond the pale has shifted, and now it's gotten worse. The threshold for indiscretions is much higher than just having an affair. I mean, Trump had his whole thing with the ex porn star blasted all over international media for 6 years. He still won twice, you know. The Concord Boys Home. Here's how crazy it is. The original anti-mass migration British far-right political leader, Enoch Powell, in the 1960s. Popular enough, certainly remembered as such, and framed by the rest of the media as, oh, no, beyond the pale, don't vote for him. He was caught up in, he had the predilection and is on record as saying, yeah, you know, young boys in 10 years, ooh, lovely holiday. And he was caught or named or seen leaving the Concord Boys Home. They would go over. So if you can get even the righteous rights leaders in there, which you will, because a lot of them are going to be hypocrites, it's sewn up. How rare is the leader who rides the wave of like the current popular backlash without being caught up in any of this?
You go back, if you want, you go back like Enoch Powell and his class of people, like old school English, English values. You know, there's a meme kind of like Victorian dad, you know, the Victorian dad, very austere, very domineering, very controlling. The kind of children that kind of English, let's say middle to upper class Protestant ethic, religious and social and interpersonal ethic produces is, it's they're not good parents basically, and they probably tend to produce, depending on the child, authoritarian, similar children basically, authoritarian, austere, which just so happens to at least on the face of it, produce quote unquote good leaders, authoritarians, right? Well, authoritarian, but very forthright, very, unforgiving, that kind of stuff, strong leader, that kind of thing. The appearance of a strong leader, without the actual important qualities of an actual leader, so you can bring it back to culture and family and it gets very complicated into all sorts of genetic considerations and stuff, because those kind of people, I think, depending on, I think it ultimately depends. If it's not just psychopathology, pure psychopathology, a lot of the common or garden paedophiles were abused as children. People who have paedophilic inclinations, men in particular, were abused as children.
Yeah.
So you have to go back to, if you want to find the genesis of this and why there's so many paedophiles in society, you have to go back to the morals and the values of a particular culture and how it is instilled into at the level of a family, and how children are raised. Because for the common or garden types, it's abusive homes, abusive childhoods that produces or tends to select for them having paedophilic inclinations. Of course, that's leaving aside just pure pathology, which also is very prevalent as well.
I think, I can understand,
drag queens, I'll put them in the same category you just said. Drag queens, I'll put them in the same category of being abused as children. But, people who say that homosexuals or people are drag queens, whatever, it's all the same, that it's an illness, psychological illness. Well, it is. It just manifests in that particular way, but it is. It's childhood abuse issues for the most part, but it's unrecognised. Rather than encouraging them to.
It used to be that you changed the DSM.
Yeah,
for definition.
But rather than admit or recognise that that's what it is, and they need therapy of some description, they're promoted as being, that's awesome.
Yeah.
The pathology that's manifesting as a result of your abusive childhood is awesome, and you should
Let it out.
spread it around to everybody and promote it as something good. It's not good. Whose childhood abuse? Who would say that childhood abuse is good? It's not good. But the manifestation of that childhood abuse in adults today is being promoted as good. Something that everybody should embrace. And if you say, it's a bit much, isn't it, the way they're acting, you know, having their ushers hanging out and down the middle of the main street and you know, having children stick, you know, dollars down their thongs and stuff. To say that that's wrong is to get shamed for it and told you're homophobic. It's all fucked up. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I mean, it's like, makes no sense whatsoever, just at a very basic reasoning level. But that's the world we live in.
Yeah.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
Where I was going to go with it was just to say that, you know, seeing kind of the way that the UK developments have been unfolding is one aspect of the situation. But then, you know, you brought up Candace Owens and what she was talking about, and that perspective I thought was like, okay, that's something you can work with, because that is not too far off the mark to say that people who get into positions of power either do so because they are like so inclined and they need somebody that they can manipulate, or they get in there and then dirt is like uncovered, or like, you know, like you were saying, they're encouraged to kind of like, you know, let loose a little bit, and then all of a sudden they have the dirt, and then they control them, and so like Candace like sees that, and there seem to be a lot of people who rightfully recognized that as being, that's probably the way it is,
right? Yeah.
And so if she can develop that a little bit more, and it seems like she's fully convinced and she's gonna continue on that train,
If she lives. This is supremely
but you know what?
dangerous.
Well, I don't
territory.
know. I don't know if it is or not in a certain sense. Because it would be a perfect way for Macron to go. This, I mean, that letter that she's going to release it in a few weeks or something like that. That interview she had, but the letter that she got from the Macron's lawyers telling her basically stop saying bad things about my quote unquote wife Brigitte, because transphobia is bad. And it's like, what do you mean transphobia? You mean she's a tranny? How do you, hang on a minute, let's step up. That's basically what the letter said, right?
Yeah.
And with no counter arguments or whatever, and all they want, all candidates and anybody else, and there's people in France who've been publishing documents and a newsletter for a long time on this issue. All they want is for Jean-Michel Trogneux to stand in front of a camera and say, I am Brigitte Macron's brother.
it's so
i.e.
simple.
I am not Brigitte. I.e.
She
Brigitte is
me.
not the brother, and they won't do that. It'd be super easy. Instead, they're sending letters to her and trying to threaten her with legal letters and all that kind of stuff. And she, but it's building a head of steam to the point that,
This is incredible, isn't it?
'Cause
For
it
a
would-
head of state to do this.
I know, ridiculous. I mean, but what else do you do? I mean, if you can't make it go away any other way, like, you know, then people are left to conclude that what she's saying is true.
Yeah.
And what many other people, it's not just her, obviously, but she's brought it to the English-speaking world. What people in France have suspected for a very long time is actually true. Now, whether or not that's an issue, or whether or not that would mean you have to resign, but I think
That's a
probably
whole
would.
nother kettle of fish. It's just the fact that like she's bringing it to the English-speaking world because no one knew that. No one in America knew
No.
any of this
No.
until she started talking about it. And then, you know, when she most recently shared the letter that she had received, and so they do at one point show like the picture of a still from Macron's inauguration way back when, 8 years ago. And it's like, see, here he is. This is him.
This is the brother.
It's like, oh, okay. So you're saying he's alive. So why haven't we seen him?
Mm-hmm. But they just say, that's him. it's just some dude in the background.
They just say he chooses to be private.
Yeah.
We don't have to prove a negative to you.
Yeah.
It's an extraordinary letter. Do you think they're so pathological or stupid or whatever that they really didn't think Candace Owens was going to read that out on her next show?
Maybe.
Because they asked specifically, don't reveal this to the public.
But that's why I think it may be part of this whole sea change in the whole dynamic towards the right, including in Europe, so that Macron, his backers, the people who put him in power, basically
Convinced him to do this?
no,
Fall on the sword.
he's left his own resources, and that's all he's got. Without those powerful people behind him to exert pressure to shut Candace Owens up in the ways that they can, they're not doing that. They're letting it happen. So
She's still on
in the
YouTube.
same way,
She's still on YouTube.
yeah, in the same way Musk is, or not Musk, in the same way Zuckerberg is suddenly having the sea change, and it's all great now, and the deep state seems to have backed off on Trump, and they're letting Trump run, they're letting free speech run, they're letting all that stuff. I see a commonality between it all. You know, the German government gets into crisis and falls. The Austrian government collapsed
Joe.
there last week, and there's a movement to allow right-wing politics to take hold.
Yeah, well, letting it be known that the president of France ruled for 7 years
Mm-hmm.
with an old man as his wife.
Yeah,
Let
What?
that become actually known. That would be
Yeah.
officially acknowledged.
yeah.
That would fuck up. That wouldn't just turn things right. There
Why?
would-
I don't think it would. I think there would be a fairly muted
they would have to
response
seriously control it because part that this story, that fact, if it were a fact, that Brigitte is actually the brother, makes Brigitte Macron 10 years older,
Mhm.
I think, or 8,
Yeah.
which makes it more egregious in terms of man-boy love, which
No.
means you're right into paedophilia.
No, it doesn't make it any more egregious.
And there's more. I mean, the story as a whole is fucked up. Brigitte is friends with Macron's grandmother. That's how they knew each other. Suggesting, like kind of groomed from a young age.
Yeah.
There's worse than that. There's a Rothschild, right? That's the godfather of Macron.
Mm-hmm.
Where did he come in?
Yeah, but all that's going too far. I don't think all of that would be exposed or would be
Right,
delved
they
into. It would just be used as a way to.
But that is part of the whole story.
It is, but that's for conspiracy theorists and all that kind of stuff. It would just be used publicly. It wouldn't be. It would be an exposure of the fact
of a
that-
lie about the nature of the
Well,
relationship.
and then Macron's just a douchebag. He was just thrown in there, by the wealthy backers to be the woke president of France, right? The gay woke president of France, and
So
to serve
they
their
can
agenda
just-
over the past 8 years. Remember, it's 8 years again.
Yeah.
I mean, it's this period of time when they needed this to happen to push this woke agenda, and they needed people like that in power. And but so they can just easily get rid of him. Like, there's no skin in their nose if he has to go. He has to do the walk of shame. He's a perp, you know. He's a
In that sense, like Macron would be, well, like Trudeau's on his way out, Biden is on his way out.
Mhm.
So what's the point in going after them?
Yeah, do you think that it's all Trump? That all this is happening? You see the commonality between Trudeau, Macron, Trump, Zuckerberg, everybody. It's all free. This whole swing, it's all to do just because Trump, or is it? I mean, it's either the conspiracy theory that it's all being managed, or it's just a natural function of the last 10, 15 years of radical woke politics.
Pushing things too far, and this is a snapback.
Yeah, but why now? I mean, the fact that they tried to assassinate Trump and all that kind of stuff, I mean, there's obviously people in positions of power behind the scenes who have a significant amount of power. And I wouldn't discount the fact that in some way or other this is part of an overall agenda.
Their next move.
That they are. I mean, part of it is partly organic and it's partly manipulated, let's say. It's not one or the other. So I just think it's interesting, an interesting time, regardless of whether you think it is one or the other. You know,
Fine.
regardless of which one you go with,
Yeah.
it's very interesting that they're having this swing back, you know, and we have to be cautious about the implications of it. You know, we have to watch out for where it might take us. You know, might there be an actual fairly strong pushback. And the way to have a pushback, you have society up in arms and calls for pogroms and mass deportations and stuff, is to release more and more pretty serious,
Damning stuff, yeah.
egregious information.
Well, it'll be interesting to see who Candace, her story in her last upload on YouTube is that, so here's this letter and she's reading out portions of it. And she said this letter is sent by, what is it when someone hands you a notice in the US?
Served.
She was served
Yeah.
with a legal letter. But it's dated December 3rd. She said that's weird because that was about 10 days after I'd flown to Europe to meet someone.
Mm-hmm.
Did she describe him as a journalist, I think, who knew a lot about the case? And so her suspicion is that she's being spied on, and that's why she received the letter. And that she's, by the way, this is going to be released at the end of this month, my interview with this mystery guy. I wonder if the person she went to meet is Alain Soral.
Maybe.
Because if you were going to switch things up and bring back and allow the snapback to come, Soral for France is your man.
Yeah.
Because he's in exile in Switzerland. He's written the books on all this long before the anti-woke movement got running. The New Right was on this in France ages ago. I don't know if you describe him as a journalist. He's certainly an author, self-described philosopher. Anyway, that's just a guess.
We'll see. We'll see.
Because if the idea was to get Trump out and then Nikki Haley in, which that seems to have been the most plausible outcome were they to actually go ahead with, killing him, Trump. It seems most likely that they were wanting to get Nikki Haley in. So what would then be kind of like, what would have been the game plan at the time, and how has it changed now that Trump is in? And I don't know.
What was if it was Nikki Haley and they're going to follow on with we're just going to push forward into a woke utopia type thing. But I don't think. Maybe they realized that they can't. It wasn't possible for them to push the whole world into that, rainbow-colored woke utopia forever type thing, because they're smart enough to know that there's going to be pushback. People are going to push back. So let's not just try it fecklessly and then be the victims in a certain sense, or be subject to random pushback. Let's bring it along so far and see how it goes. And at a particular time, we'll drop it and
have in place leaders who, as much as possible, we can control.
Yeah, well, yeah, to some extent, yeah. Or it could be organic.
In this framework, what do you make then of Trump publishing, not on Twitter but on his Truth Social network, a clip of Jeffrey Sachs berating Netanyahu, and Musk stupidly or smartly asking Ian Carroll,
what am I missing?
What am I missing? And getting ratioed up the wazoo first vis-a-vis the Israel problem.
Well, that's another element where it's going to be. It's possible, I don't know, maybe peace will break out and, we'll have global peace and prosperity for a number of years or something like that, where everything calms down. But Israel's got to be concerned about this idea of, Fortress America and Trump moving in that direction. I'm sure they're not ignorant of it and have thought about it, and might be concerned about, their position in the Middle East, in terms of, depends if Trump would, to any significant extent, withdraw support for the Israeli agenda in the Middle East, and what they would do about it. Are they happy to kind of once they've got Syria now and Iran's been pushed back and contained as far as they're concerned, are they happy with that, or do they want to finish the job with Iran, and would they be willing to implement the final solution in the Middle East, will they take out Iran in some form or other and have some revolution in Iran? I don't know if they are able to do that, but certainly Israel would like to do that. They haven't quite finished remaking the Middle East in Israel's image just yet, or the way Israel would like it. So it's possible that something could continue to and get worse in the Middle East, or if the Israelis, are part of an agenda in a certain sense, and might just let it all kind of calm down. And although it's not a place that's likely to calm down, I don't think.
Yeah, I was thinking
With the
that
jihadis in Syria and stuff, who knows? But it's crazy when you can put those head choppy, liver eating jihadis in suits, and
20 kilometers from Israel's border.
yeah,
Which takes a full back circle to 9/11 and the whole reason for the fucking war on terror in the first place.
Yeah.
Finally, Netanyahu's like, America will understand what it's like for us.
Right.
And here we are. It's like,
when you can have America basically.
what was the point of all that?
Yeah, when you can have Al Qaeda as number one enemy and Bin Laden, all that kind of stuff, and then within 20 years, the same Al Qaeda that is doing the same thing, it's the same agenda, which is basically owned by the CIA, it has to be said, are now rehabilitated and friendly with America. It's just, there is a certain clear evidence of it all being, a large part of it being manipulated and orchestrated in one way or another. Where there's boogeymen that are brought up. Bin Laden's a boogeyman, ISIS is a boogeyman, terror attacks, all that kind of stuff, and then they can all be made to go away. The Saudis are on record as having said that, to Putin actually. IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, the prince of
Irritable
Saudi-
bin Salman.
Irritable bin Salman, yeah. He is reported to have said to Putin, made mention of that look, those jihadis on your southern border and stuff in Georgia and Chechnya in the South Caucasus, basically, we control them. We can make them go away. They can either become a real problem for you, or they can go away. And so that's the same. I mean, the CIA did the same thing with Al Qaeda. They made them a problem for their geopolitical agenda, and when they decide that that's enough, they can make them go away.
Well, the empire is still ticking away on that issue. They lifted the bounty on Syria's new ISIS leader this week. And instead placed one on Maduro's head.
Yeah, I know.
Trump's not even in office, but Biden's doing that. I thought Biden was not on that team that attacks Venezuela because socialism. Anyway, yeah, they want Maduro, $25 million.
Maduro, what's the base of that? Maduro won the elections fair and square.
Yeah, he did.
So how do you, in a foreign country, they had elections?
Oh, no, the election, the US says he didn't.
Yeah, but it was.
It was.
But even if it's a new, it's new for America.
Hey, shit, look at
To
Romania.
put a bounty.
Romania, the guy won and he said, well, we can't see
No, but that's one thing. But it's new for them to put a bounty, like a terrorist bounty on the president of a country's head.
Yeah.
Because you claim that the elections weren't fair. They haven't done that before.
Well, this is where you're talking about a world peace scenario. This is where everyone could end up hating the US.
Well, no, that's where it'd probably go.
The US also this week slapped sanctions on the ICC because Netanyahu.
But that's Fortress America. When you've financed a large part of the world for 100 years and give them your culture and browbeat them and manipulated them and cooed them and invaded them into accepting American global hegemony, and then all of a sudden you go, all right, we're not going to do that anymore. And in fact, we're not friends with you anymore. We're basically enemies in a certain sense, economic enemies. Let's say it's every man for himself, and we're going to start threatening you and do what Trump is doing basically. Well, yeah, you're gonna. It's like Daddy left us. You know what I mean? Daddy's gone away and now he's being mean to us. And then they get all. And they have a public image to maintain as well. Like, they can't look like the quislings that they are. They never wanted to appear as quislings. That we're all our partners in America, and we work with the Americans. No, you don't. You're their bitches. You're America's bitches, basically. And it's kind of like a pimp. No longer
after she's gotten too old.
Yeah,
she's no longer
or
useful.
just getting rid of his prostitutes, and how they'll
who have Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah,
and they're like,
yeah,
you can't just throw me out here.
Yeah, and turn on him, and scratch his eyes out,
stab him in his sleep.
That's what's going on. That's going to happen. Maybe. I think the world will, at least not the whole world, but nobody's going to be happy. A large part of the world is not going to be happy with America backing away. And especially not just backing away peaceably, but actually making it adversarial and implementing policies that screw over certain countries, imposing tariffs, all that kind of stuff, invading Greenland, saying nasty things. And Trump's a perfect person to say things. I mean, even though you might interpret them behind the scenes, he doesn't mean that. He's saying them publicly. And it's your reputation at stake, Like, basically,
he was
any
asked-
countries, like Trump just insulted you, Prime Minister. What are you going to do about it? Well, I know he doesn't mean it and it's just all bullshit, but geez, I got to pander to the population here. I can't just sit back and go, no, that's fine. He can abuse me. I'm going to abuse him back. And those words then have real world implications. You can't just talk it up, To some extent you can, but not fully. You can't just talk up an angry adversarial stance to America and then not do anything about it, Especially if in the real world Trump is actually imposing, economic policies or implementing economic policies that are having a direct negative effect on your economy and by implication, threatening your position, politicians' positions in power, It's so messed up.
It is.
It's a super clusterfuck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's heavy, man. This was a heavy show. It's a fucked up world. That plane crash in South Korea on the 29th. The breaking news today.
Super suspect.
They found the black recorders. What are they called? Black boxes. The flight and cockpit recorder are missing the last 4 minutes of information. Where'd they go? I wonder, I'd be curious about that. Exactly 4 minutes? Are they both 4 minutes? Or does it fade out and get worse because the data is scratched or something?
Right, and that was landing gear failure officially, right? Landing
On the
gear.
same day as the one in Norway.
Right. So how do you send out some data? You hack, like Russian hackers. You get your laptop out and you go hack landing gear of that plane or of those planes, and then go hack, and it stops that land. It works that way. I'm pretty sure.
Is that how it works?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a Russian
there's
hacker.
there's a hack button. You
Yeah.
Okay.
Once you've put in the numbers, hack, and then
Entering
it's,
coordinates.
yeah,
Hack.
yeah, and then the landing gear doesn't work. But the last 4 minutes, so it would have been probably within that time frame of when the landing gear, because obviously landing gear, generally speaking, you drop it down on approach to landing, right? If you've been in a plane, you can hear it going down actually, and it's usually a few minutes or whatever before you land. So,
Someone's sending a message.
no, what it means just that those 4 minutes of the last 4 minutes of the black box, the last 4 minutes of the actual flight of the plane would have been the period of time when the pilots tried to put the landing gear down and it didn't work and they went, fuck.
Yeah.
Or they saw something happening and they were speaking in the cockpit, which would have been recorded, which would have given an idea of why the landing gear wasn't going down,
Right.
or what they thought, or what had happened, or
Right.
maybe there was a jihadi in there saying,
Oahu.
he stuck a knife in the landing gear lever or something, or whatever. But it's just very suspicious.
It's suspicious because it smacks of someone covering tracks.
Yeah.
It's a crucial point in time when you
Yeah.
have got information about what happened with the landing
The
gear.
reason
most
why-
crucial, the most important, the most crucial
Yeah.
bit of time in that incident, and it just so happens to be gone.
Yeah, it went away.
How? Why?
It went away. It got deleted accidentally.
That was catastrophic. It was confirmed that only two people survived.
Right.
2 air hostesses at the back. Everyone else was toasted.
It's interesting.
It's a very spectacular crash too. I mean, that would have been
Well, what's
traumatic
interesting-
for South Korea.
Yeah, and what's interesting as well is that it was a flight or at an airport where they have this, and it's not at every airport you have that, where they have this big dirt pile with
At
like
the
some
end.
metal barriers or whatever at the end of it. So, I mean, there's no scope for
Just
letting it run. Onto a grassy field, which there should be. You know what I mean? At the end of a runway, it should be a big expanse of just grass or something. Okay, you build your runway to the amount that you need it to standards, but then at the very end of it, you should have an open area in the event that a plane has a bad landing and
Like
can't stop and
runaway trucks.
Yeah.
When they have runaway trucks
Right,
in the
the
mountains,
slipways
they
or
have
whatever.
off to the side. They have a bunch of
Right.
rows of dirt piles.
Right.
And so it goes into the dirt.
well, yeah, but that's okay. Maybe actually, what they have is on hills. like that, they have off ramps going up.
Well, yeah,
where
that's what I mean.
But not that something you'd crash into. What I'm saying is they shouldn't have a big pile of dirt at the end of a runway. They should have an open piece.
No. I'm simply like saying, like, you know, somebody has thought about it
as if you did that for trucks.
So whatever. So that's what they do for trucks. So like, why not have something similar where you're like, okay, we need something in order to stop planes in a safe way.
Yeah.
That's not going to cause a giant explosion and kill everybody inside.
Right. It's not like running into a brick wall.
Yeah.
At the end of your runway, you need an open area of grass.
Yeah.
In a field. The same length as a runway, so a plane can skid off it and not explode. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting that it happened. It was just unfortunate, like, because I suppose there's other runways don't have that, but it just so happened to be at this runway where the landing gear failure, which ordinarily wouldn't be a problem because landing gear failures happen quite often. There was one the same day, like you mentioned.
The Norway one wasn't catastrophic.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
But a different type of failure. But this one obviously was where the plane came in. I didn't actually look at it closely, but I don't think the landing gear came down at all. So they had to basically just put it down and let it slide along the runway. And if there wasn't that giant wall of dirt at the end,
It might have been okay. Well, it caught fire, but yeah.
Well, there was some fire from the skid and all kind of stuff, but it exploded into a ball of flames when it hit the dirt.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Tragic. There's a lot of tragedies. And
where does that fit into? If that's the deliberate act, what does that fit into? That's just another element of dystopia, right? Of having an effect on the global population of a plane crash. I mean, it sows fear and, you know, insecurity about traveling, about air travel, and it just adds to, if it's one of many things. I mean, a plane crashing and killing pretty much everybody on board is a downer.
Sure.
For everybody that hears about it, and if it's just one of many different things that give people globally the impression that the world's bad things are happening, you know, the world's in a bad place, then is that the basic agenda?
Maybe there's something more pointed here because of the fight in South Korea over rapprochement with North Korea that led to the sitting prime minister freaking out, or president.
Yeah, well, how does that affect that down
Don't
on
know.
the plane?
Don't know. Sending
It's not
maybe
pointed
the-
enough.
Yeah.
Sending messages to each other. I don't think it doesn't even involve.
Yeah. I mean, so probably be better ways for that specific agenda. You'd probably better ways to send a message, you know, rather than killing a bunch of innocent people. Anyway, what else we got? Is that it? Have you had enough?
Yeah. I'm done.
You're done.
Yeah.
Adam, any last thoughts? Where are we going to be this time next week?
Well,
the Bahamas?
there was the new. There was an update following the Cybertruck explosion, where they were saying that what's his name,
Livelsberger, yeah.
That he used ChatGPT to build the bomb because reasons, and then they had footage that I didn't notice before when I was looking at it, because you'd see, like, some of the older videos, you could see, like, the person who's sitting in the driver's seat, they kind of look to the left, and then the explosion happens. But then when they were showing their video in the conference, in the press conference, it actually has a flash.
Right.
And so they're saying, so this flash is the guy shooting himself.
Muzzle flasher.
And so that's what then ignites the fire. They released other footage where he's actually pouring liquid of some description
in the car,
in the car,
right,
driving away. They show him pulling into the valet area in front of the hotel, and you can see the drips. You know, there's no drips, and then the car comes in, and there's a bunch of drips in the driveway. So they were saying, like, you know, this is, you know, just further confirming that he was pouring something
like gasoline or something.
Yes, they're saying
the
it's
video
gasoline.
of him doing the pouring. Where was that taking place?
Just outside of a store somewhere in Las Vegas.
Okay.
But I can't remember like which one or what exactly, but it was just outside of a store. And so,
Well, that does suggest. I mean, the videos look legit to you. These are reported by the Las Vegas Police Department, right?
yeah,
So that does sound like a guy who's trying to go out in a ball of flames.
yeah.
So
But
okay,
MK
He
Ultra,
is-
man.
MK Ultra. Well, yeah, he's
Probably. Military. Don't be military.
Yeah.
But how do they get two of them on the same day? Well,
Well, if he's MK Ultra, then you just
you just have two on the same day, right?
yeah.
Do you say thank you for your service to people like him?
That's touchy, sir.
Thank you for your service to the deep state globalists.
What is he? Yeah. What service has he served?
For the deep staters, you know. Anyway, I only know 25 letters of the alphabet.
I've heard this one before.
Okay.
Go on.
You tell me then.
Something about why.
But you don't know why.
You don't know.
That's all we got today. I'm sorry it's a bit lame, you know. It's pretty poor fare.
You're
But you
fired.
got to pay more. You're fired. You got to pay us more for better jokes. No?
Yeah.
Lame. Use ChatGPT next time.
Oh, yeah. I wonder if ChatGPT, or no, Grok. Grok could maybe have some good jokes.
It might be slightly spicier.
I wonder if I could ask Grok to tell me the best anti-Semitic joke.
A Jew and a can of gasoline walk into a bar.
Yeah. Do you know how copper wire was invented?
Where?
How copper wire was? Yeah.
Oh, copper wire.
Yeah. Do you know? No.
No.
Two Jews fighting over a penny.
I've heard the same, but with Scots.
You can say Scottish. We're totally equal opportunity here. Scottish people, whoever else is stingy. But yeah.
Yeah.
You get it, yeah? Anyway, we're going to leave it there for this week, folks. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the show. Thanks for commenting too. We always like the comments. We'll
Oh,
be
look,
back.
we've been thanked for our service.
Thanks for your service. Yes, thank everybody for their service. Service to whoever. We'll be back next week with another show. So until then, have a good week and stay real.
Thanks
Stay
for
MAGA.
watching.
Bye.
Bye all.
Bye.
Can't stop the signal now.